Okay.
And we're live.
A little louder.
And that is Russell Morris with Wings of an Eagle, and this is Dylan Knows list show, I guess. So I was just trying something different. Did it sound okay, Jerry?
It was very low, so I don't know how it came through for everybody else.
Okay, well, I'll play around when I rewatch the video later today. But we're actually live now, so I can't rewatch it now. I'm Dylan. This is Dylan Knows. This is my weekly TV show. And if you don't know this by now, I'm at episode 80. Come on, I've had 80 episodes. I've been over a year and a half doing this show, and Jerry's been with me the whole time. Hey, Jerry.
Hello. Yeah, we're old news now.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna. I always keep hoping maybe we'll get new viewers. But no. But the main reason why everybody tunes in is to hear what we discuss, and this show is our list show. Every Sunday I do a different show, different genre. This is our list show. It's always the second week in the month. So Jerry and I we pick a subject, and then we either pick a number. Also, sometimes we do top 10s most of the time, but then we've done 25, we've done 20, we've done 5, we've done 13, we've done weird numbers like that. But it's fun, whatever we talk about. And we do a lot of pop culture stuff, but sometimes I like to mix it up a little bit. We did our conspiracy show, still one of my favorites, and this one is our urban legend show. And uh-oh.
Oh, you can hear Lucas in the background? I have the door closed. Lucas, go away.
Mom, there's a man in the house. There's a man in the house.
Yeah, Ken's supposed to get them dressed. Sorry about that. They'll be gone in a few minutes.
No, it's fine. It's okay. But we're doing the top 10 urban legends. Now, it doesn't mean that they're our favorite or the best ones or whatever. They're just ones that we find interesting and want to talk about. For those who might not know what urban legend is one of those stories that always you hear about all the time, and they're usually horrible. They're usually murder, death, embarrassing moments, terrible, horrendous things that happen. But and it's one of these stories is like how I know my aunt's cousin's best friend. It happened to her, so it's true. It's got to be true. And in most cases, the reason why they created the website Snopes is one of the reasons why is to debunk all these so-called urban legends, stuff like that. So urban legends have been around forever. We've got really, really old ones, and there's ones that are still happening nowadays. So Jerry and I, we just did our top 10 picks. A good example of an urban legend is it's not on my list because we don't live in Gotham City and we don't live in the world of Batman, but there are certain comic book writers who use Batman as an urban legend in their storytelling where, there's rumors that they shoot the bat signal in the sky to scare the criminals, saying, oh, there really is a person dressed as a bat running around and knocking people out, but no one's ever seen him, But this guy says he saw it from this guy, and he said he saw it. So they sometimes have used Batman as an urban legend before, but then there's also those writers who, hello, I'm Batman. I'm here. I'm beating everybody up. Come find me. So, Batman's a good example of a a pop culture urban legend. And wow, I just got blue. But we've got 10, and we're gonna have a window to get it in. So let's get started. Jerry, you're number 10.
My number 10. This one's the silly one, though. My silly ones are first, then they get scarier. So it's do you remember back in the 70s and 80s the Life cereal commercial with Mikey? Hey, Mikey, he likes it. So there is an urban legend going around that Mikey ate a whole thing of Pop Rocks and chased it with a can of soda, and his stomach exploded and he died. So, of course, all the kids of the 80s, I was a child of the 80s, I know you were too because we're around the same age, so people used to say, oh, if you eat the Pop Rocks and then drink the soda, your stomach's going to explode, you're going to die. Mikey from Life cereal died. And some people would try it. Some people were too scared to try it. But it turns out that if you do it, all it does is give you a really bad stomachache and you end up throwing up. So my number 10 is the Pop Rocks and soda because it took me back to the childhood years.
That was actually my number 4 because it's one of those things that, you know, you always hear about, and you're like, oh, I know he's not dead. They say he's not dead, but then you're sitting there, you look at the Pop Rocks, you look at the soda, you're like, maybe I really shouldn't try this. Maybe it didn't happen to him, but maybe it could still happen.
Sure.
But what I find interesting most about that was there was a movie came out in the late 90s. When Scream came out, it was such a big hit that horror, the slacker horror movies, like the ones that are self-aware horror films, became like the norm in the late 90s. And there was one of those that came out called Urban Legends. And basically, it was a serial killer who was killing people via the urban legends.
Okay.
So it's your typical Scream-esque type of movie. It's got college students, all good-looking girls and boys, men and women. Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek and Fringe was in it, and Robert Englund actually was the professor of urban legends who was telling the stories and stuff like that. And so, and I think the heroine was Alicia Witt, was the big flame-haired, red-haired woman. But one of the things that they did as when they show the trailer and you get the idea what the story is that they're killing people via the urban legends, and Joshua Jackson's character is going to prove to everybody that's not true. So he swigs the soda, or he does the Pop Rock and swigs the soda, and he starts like foaming at the mouth and then falls down. You're like, oh, he's gonna die, and then you think, okay, the serial killer struck again, but in the end it was just Joshua Jackson joking around and stuff like that. He dies a different way. He actually dies from the one of the ones about the being in the woods and hanging and stuff like that. We might talk about this a little bit.
Yeah.
So my number 4 was that one.
Okay.
My number 10 is also a fun one also. And it's kind of like urban legends are very, it doesn't really have like an exact definition, but this is something that isn't true. It's been proven not true, but everybody knows Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was the first man to walk on the moon, and they are supposedly, you can hear him say when he's actually, after he's done his walk on the moon, he's going back into the moon lander, he says, "Good luck, Mr. Gursley." And you supposedly heard that, and people said they've heard that, because they were showing it live and all that stuff when he was getting in and out like that. And so people wanted to do some digging to see what is this thing that he said. Why did he say "Good luck, Mr. Gursley"? Well, finds out that the story that's told about that is that when Neil Armstrong was a boy, he was playing with a friend of his, in his front yard, and they're playing baseball or something, and the ball got hit into his neighbor's yard. And so it was a summer day, so he and his friend go into the yard and to retrieve the ball, and the upstairs bedroom window is wide open, and you can hear, the Gursleys were Neil Armstrong's neighbors, and they heard Mrs. Gursley shouting at her husband, "You want sex? Well, you'll get sex when the boy next door walks on the moon." Remember, this is when he's a boy. And so then that was, the rumor that, when he walked on the moon and then he goes upstairs, or he goes back into the lander, he says, "Good luck, Mr. Gursley," because he walked on the moon, and he remembers that story.
That's hilarious.
It's not true.
Oh, that would have been great.
But it's a funny story, and because most urban legends are very vicious and very awful, and it's kind of fun to have some of these nice quiet ones. That was my number 10.
Awesome. All right, my number 9 is the infamous sewer gators of New York City. So I guess it used to be a fad. The legend says there used to be a fad back in the day that New Yorkers would go to Florida, because a lot of people from my area, the tri-state area, they're known as snowbirds, where they live here in the summer and spring and then go to Florida for the winter. And so there was this fad that when New Yorkers would go down there to vacation, they would bring back the little baby gators and figure, oh, how cute, our kids can raise them, blah, blah, blah. So their kids would raise them, they'd start to grow, and they realized what a big pain in the ass it was to grow these gators. So they used to get frustrated and flush them down the toilet and just get rid of them and say, whatever. So the legend is that some of these gators survive the flushing, and grew up in the sewers. So then when the sewer workers came down, however many years it takes for an alligator to grow, I don't know, they would find these giant albino gators in the sewers of Manhattan. And I just think it's so funny. So that's my number 9.
That almost made my list. It was that close. If we did 11, it would be my number 11 because that is one you always hear about. And, that's the other thing also. All these urban legends that we're going to be talking about, you hear about them all the time, and you see them in the pop culture shows, and they make fun of them as well. I mean, I remember there's was a Simpsons episode where they were coming out of the toilet and they were trying to stuff them back in the toilet and stuff like that. So it's funny. Yeah, those are pretty clever, and it could make sense. I mean, there's lots of stuff down there. You don't even want to think about what's down there. My number 9 is not a bad one either. Kind of. It's not a violent one. Let's put it that way. Okay. And once again, the thing about these urban legends is people can, when they hear the stories, they always can change certain aspects of it to fit whatever they're trying to do. So this one has a couple of different versions of it, but this is the most popular one I found. A couple on a honeymoon in a tropical paradise. They're staying at a rental cottage or whatever. They go out on the beach and they're enjoying themselves, having fun in the sun, and unfortunately they forget to leave. They left their camera in their room. Sometimes you're in a hurry to get out and enjoy the sun, that you sometimes forget your camera. Well, they go out and they enjoy the sun and stuff like that. So they come back a few hours later, discover that their room has been ransacked. That money's been taken, jewels been taken, some of their clothes, but they still have other of their clothes. They still have their personal items and stuff like that. So the couples, they and then they discover that their fancy camera's still there. I was like, okay, well, thank God. They must not have wanted it, or they didn't see it, whatever. So they did their thing to the cops, and they didn't really worry about it too much because they're on their honeymoon, and they still had all their stuff, and it was okay, and so they were fine. So they flew back home after their honeymoon was over. And they decided to, let's develop our pictures. It was before digital, obviously. Let's develop our pictures, and see, remember our wonderful honeymoon, even though we had that situation where, our stuff got stolen. So when they get the pictures back, they discover that there are 2 guys who had ransacked their room, were taking pictures of each other, sticking the couple's toothbrushes up their butts.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this has happened early on in their honeymoon, so they've been using this toothbrush over and over and over again during their vacation. So obviously, that's one of those things that you see that you're like, oh God, I'm going to puke now because I was just stay stuck it up their butts and I've been using it to brush my teeth. So, that's one. As I said, there's a couple of different versions of that story, but that's the one I thought was the most interesting one.
Yeah, interesting. It's awful. Oh my God. There's not enough mouthwash in the world. Surprised they didn't get sick,
Exactly, I know. Are you number 8?
Yep, my number 8 is, I think this one has been proven untrue, and that is there was a rumor going around that Walt Disney, after he died, was frozen and was going to be kept frozen until they could find a cure for whatever illness he had, then they could bring him back to life. So, it turned out there was a whole bunch of gossip magazines that talked about this, but he actually was cremated in 1966. So, no, Walt Disney isn't coming back, sorry.
Yeah.
Unless they have his DNA, I don't know.
You know what, I've heard stories also that he wasn't the greatest guy in the world, even though he did create Disney World and Disneyland and all these characters, but... Yeah, who knows? My number 8 is actually kind of a 3-parter because these are the 3 biggest stories. Faking your death. Celebrities faking their deaths. There's 3 big ones off the top of my head. First one, obviously, is Elvis Presley. A lot of people believe that Elvis Presley faked his death, and one of their proof was that his middle name was misspelled on his tombstone that's laid to rest in Graceland. And then you put on top of that, so you have that, and then you put on top of that in the 80s, you start hearing, in the gossip rags like you just talked about also, people were saying, oh yeah, Elvis has been, is alive and well. He's been hanging out at this, cafe in the Midwest, and he's working on a farm, and they've got pictures of him working, mowing lawns, stuff like that, and it looks like Elvis. So, like, oh yeah, Elvis is still alive. He was still alive, stuff like that. But that piggybacks onto another one, Andy Kaufman. Now, those who don't know who Andy Kaufman is, he was one of these performance artist comedians. He would do absolutely crazy comedy things that you might not think were funny, but when you think about it in retrospect, they actually were pretty cool. A good example was he would come out and do his foreign man shtick, which he used a lot for Latka in the TV show Taxi. And he would come out and he would, he says, I'd like to sing some American songs because I love American songs. So he starts singing these songs, in the foreign voice, oh Lola, yo, the Copacabana, stuff like that. And then he says, now I'm going to do a song from Elvis Presley. And then he turns around and he gets all Elvised up, and then he turns around and he starts doing a dead-on Elvis impersonation. I mean, absolutely perfect. So that's like, everybody's expecting him to be, it's a comedian. It's going to be a funny, foreign voice going to be Elvis. But no, it's this guy who's doing a killer Elvis impersonation. There's also, so that's going to lead into something also. But then he also did a character called Tony Clifton, where it was Andy Kaufman in disguise, being the most obnoxious person he could possibly be. And there have been rumors that he, and these actually were true, these aren't urban legends, that he had to have the Taxi contract sign Tony Clifton in for a guest spot on Taxi. Everybody knew it was Andy, but but Andy was at the same time was screwing around with them, and so they just, and then he was just really obnoxious, and so he would do his his set. And then one day, Tony Clifton's out there doing his set. Everybody thinks it's Andy Kaufman, and out comes Andy Kaufman. And they're like, whoa, wait a second. Hold on a second there. What's going on with that? We learned later on that his partner, Bob Zamunda, his comedy partner, Bob Zamunda, was dressed as Tony Clifton and did a spot-on impersonation. But where it comes with him faking his death, he also had written stuff after he died, like people were revealing stuff that he was going to return, for his 50th birthday or 20 years after his death or something like that. It's a big surprise there because he was that type of guy. I mean, he filled what is that big performance place in? Is it New York?
The Met or the Lincoln Center or
something like that. It's just one of these places where just you hear all about it's if you can fill this, you can make it anywhere, stuff like that.
Okay.
And he was able to fill
Madison Square Garden.
Maybe not. It wasn't Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
I wish I had written it down, but I can't remember. But anyway, after he did his performance, he filled this, this performance hall, and after the performance, he took everybody out for milk and cookies somewhere, so that he paid for. So it was just one of these things where he did these kind of crazy things. Now, he died apparently of cancer, and he had a funeral and all that stuff. And then very soon after he died, Tony Clifton comes back and starts doing the shtick again. So immediately, a lot of people didn't know that Bob Zamunda was Tony Clifton. They but they thought that it was still Andy Kaufman doing it. So they thought, okay, Andy was faking his death to be this Tony Clifton guy all year round. And then I also thought, and actually this is something my dad actually mentioned, he did such a killer Elvis impersonation. If he was still alive, why didn't he just be Elvis going to sit down at some cafe in the Midwest and have people say, oh, look, Elvis is here, but it's actually Andy Kaufman who had faked his death, playing Elvis, making people think Elvis faked his death, So it's one of those meta things that Andy Kaufman would do. So as of now, I mean, there's been no, there was a talk last year that he might make an appearance. His daughter said he would make an appearance and stuff like that. And everybody was like, oh, cool, but no, it still hasn't happened. So I think Andy Kaufman's actually dead. But, that was, he faked there's rumors that he faked his death also. And then the last one is Tupac. Mainly because everybody believed Tupac killed his or faked his death because after he died he released more albums than he did when he was alive. Obviously, he must have had all these different reels of different songs, so like that he never got around to putting on albums, and so his friends over there say, hey, why don't we make a Tupac album? So they took them and they remastered them and used that. Keep making money. And then there have been also pictures that have been popping up on the internet of a guy that looks surprisingly like Tupac at concerts and stuff like that, and there's always, once again, there's rumors that he mentioned that he had faked his death. He'd be coming back like in 2015 or 2014, whatever. Still hasn't happened yet. So celebrities faking their deaths is a good urban legend. I mean, you can say there's a lot of other people who've done it before. Jim Morrison, The Doors, they say faked his death to go over to France to become a poet, that type of thing. So there's urban legends for that, and that was my number 8.
It's kind of sad, too, because you feel like these people who want to believe it, like, they can't let go. You know? They still want them to be around and alive, but when you go, you go. Can't still be here.
Exactly.
Okay. So my number 7 is, there's lots of variations of this one, and I mean, everybody has done it and tried it, and that is Bloody Mary. So I think everybody has done this at a sleepover where you go we used to go into the bathroom and shut the door tight and the lights off and look into the mirror, and supposedly if you say her name 3 times, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, she'll appear to you in the mirror. But it never happened for us. I don't know if you got to see her or not, but that's a huge popular urban legend. You know, a lot of horror movies actually have kind of played off of that idea, you know. For
Candyman. Yep.
No, honey. You gotta go. Go ask Daddy to help you, okay? Shut the door for me.
I'm sorry.
Bye, Lucas. Bye.
Bye, Lucas. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
He's
it's
going
fine.
to the bounce factory for birthday.
Well, it was the last couple episodes I've had. Noah's been coming down and just sort of hanging around in the background every once in a while, and then coming up and showing his face like.
Yeah. I think he was curious because he needed me to help him put on his shoes, but Ken's in the other room, so it's like, go ask Daddy.
I have Bloody Mary further up on my list, and we'll talk about that a little more when I get there. But definitely that is one of the most popular urban legends out there. Now we're going to start getting some horrible ones. Here's my number 7, and this one again has variations as well. But I'm going to go with the one that supposedly took place like in the 60s. When you had the big bouffant hairdos, the big Marge Simpson style hairdos, the big ratty, big huge. It was a status symbol at the time. Like, look how big my hair is. It's so great. And supposedly this was that?
Beehive, I think it was called. The Beehive hairstyle? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this one woman, this is how the story goes, she made the absolute perfect hairdo and decided that she never wanted to wash it or comb it or take care of it. She just wanted to keep spraying it so it would stay this way forever. And, it worked for a while, and then all of a sudden she started complaining of some pain up in her head. And then she died. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So then when the coroner, is doing his check on what caused her death, he checks her hair, and inside is a family of black widows. Apparently, a pregnant black widow got into the big hair and snuggled itself in the hair, had the babies, and then were agitated at one point, and they all just stabbed the woman at the same time, killing her instantly with their poison. Now, the Black Widow is one of the culprits. They've also said maybe regular spiders. There were so many of them that the bites eventually killed her. Another one that it might have been like centipedes or other type of like insects that bees and stuff like that eventually would kill her. So just the whole fact that something is living in your hair and you don't know it, and it ends up killing you that way. So.
Oh, gross. I kind of have a sort of story that's related to that.
Go ahead.
I had gotten chicken pox when I was a kid. And, when you get them everywhere. So they even get them like on your scalp, which is really strange. So the one day I was at my grandmother's house, and I've been playing outside, and I was like, oh, this one chicken pox. And I'm poking at it and prodding at it, and it's like, oh, it feels loose, and I'm messing with it. And all of a sudden I was able to rip it out. I'm thinking, oh, there's going to be blood. And it was a bug. And I freaked out because I had been smushing it and prodding it and messing with it. And I'm like, it was a bug. And I screamed. And my grandmother's in the other room. She comes running in. She's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, it was a bug. She wanted to kill me. She's like, what'd you scare me for over a bug? I'm like, no, you don't understand. I was like poking and prodding. She's like, get out of here. She was so annoyed with me.
Well, yeah, just
the same idea.
Just the fact, something like that. I mean, and I guess you can say that with ticks also, because you're scratching, all of a sudden you feel these little, you're scratching, all of a sudden you pull this thing off, and it's this little bug. It's like, oh.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Okay, so my number 6 is called The Vanishing Hitchhiker.
Okay.
And it's this urban legend of you're driving down the road, or a motorist is driving down the road, and there's a hitchhiker. And it's like a girl all by herself. So you let her in her car, and you're driving. She gets in the back seat. And when she tells you, where she lives and the motorist drives her home, turns around, and there's nobody in the back seat. So the motorist goes up to the house, knocks on the door, whoever answers the door, and she's like, I just had so-and-so in my car, and I can't find her, only to find out that that person had died in a car accident in the exact spot that the motorist had picked them up.
That is creepy.
Yes.
That is very, I didn't do a lot of those creepy ones, even though, because, as I said, urban legends, they come in different shapes and forms. They come in the horror ones, the silly kind of ones we did, and these creepy ones. Another good one, which I'll just mention real quick, just to piggyback on yours. It's not on my list, so it should be, and it's got a local flavor. It's one called Black Aggie. It's about this statue, and supposedly, I guess there's always like all these statues all over in these graveyards. And some graveyards have those statues in them, like that are for the tombstones. And supposedly, this one called Black Aggie is if you go and sit. She sort of sits like this. You sit in her arms at midnight or overnight, whatever, and you leave your friend there. And when you come back, they supposedly die because Black Aggie sucks the life force out of that person. So that's an urban legend similar to more of a horror one. That and the bunny man on the bridge, which again I wish I might have done, but I didn't. That was another one with a guy who claimed to see somebody in a bunny outfit with the axe, coming after you and stuff like that. So there's some creepy ones, but yeah, the Vanishing Hitchhiker is a very popular one, and it is one you're going to hear a whole lot. So that's a good one. My number 6 one is not horrible, but it's maybe a little scary a little bit. Once again, we're going on. Couple is on their honeymoon. They go to this really nice hotel, and they have a great time on their honeymoon. You do the stuff you do on your honeymoon, and you have a great time. So a year later, to celebrate their anniversary, they decide to go back to the same hotel, go to the same room they had to relive their honeymoon. And the two of them, one night they're getting a little frisky, but they want to try something different. So they decide, hey, why don't we turn on the TV? And they have movies on demand, and one's a pornography section. So why don't we check out the pornography section and get aroused and get in the mood, stuff like that. So they're watching this pornography movie, and it turns out they're looking at it, and it looks familiar. It looks like it was shot in their room. And then you get closer, it's them having sex from last year. So apparently, that's the thing, is that somebody was videotaping people who stayed in the hotel rooms having sex, and then edits them or whatever and turns them into pornos that other people can watch. And that is it's an urban legend, but it's also kind of creepy,
That could happen. Yeah, that one could actually happen.
Exactly.
I'm sure it has happened to people, not like that intense, but yeah.
That's a story that it could be considered an urban legend, but you're absolutely right. I mean, you have these people who put cameras in bathrooms nowadays, and we just had a story where a not really a priest, but a guy who teaches religion, stuff like that, Jewish religion, was busted for filming women getting into like a ceremonial shower that they have. It's some sort of Jewish. Yeah, so he got in trouble with that because they got filmed. So doing that. So yeah, it's one of those things that probably could happen. Yeah. And may well happen, but at the same time, it's one of those things where it comes to urban legend, it's just a story that gets passed down from people, and they say they swear they know somebody who it happened to. So that's my number 6.
Well, that's surprising about the rabbi, because that was probably an Orthodox temple, because it's the one holiday where you have to be totally cleansed, so they do like a pre-wash. Okay. Off the top of my head, I don't know what it's called, but wow, that's really surprising, because Orthodox is supposed to be like uber religious.
Yeah, I can't.
Wow.
The situation, it was last year around, I guess and not necessarily on the Jewish holidays, but it was last year that the whole thing came out, and he had been teaching at a local college, and they fired him as soon as he got busted for that, and he's been in jail, and there's a lawsuit out and all that stuff, so it's still going on. So it's scary stuff what happens out there,
Yeah.
Creepy people out there.
Yeah, we have access to so much now. And it's funny because that urban legend reminds me of, and I can't think of the name of the movie, maybe you'll know. I think it was Ben Affleck, and I forget who the woman is, the British one, Kate Beckinsale. Was it them? And they go to a hotel, and they keep watching the video, and there's killers outside.
Yeah, there.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I know which one it is. I don't know if it's Ben Affleck, but I do know. I do know. I don't remember the name of the movie, but yeah, it's a creepy. Yeah, it's one of those creepy horror films where it's like almost like snuff films, and it's the same room, and it's these people in masks who they come in and they slaughter the people, and then the same thing is beginning to happen to them as they start hearing the strange knocks on the door and the weird stuff happening. So yeah, it's creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my number 5, I remember hearing this one for the first time when I went to college, because there's a ton that circulate around college. And this one was, the 2 girls go out and to a campus party. They have a good time, they get a little drunk, they come home, and the one girl goes to her room, and the lights are off, So she stumbles around, doing that drunken state that you do, and gets her jammies on. She realizes her roommate's in bed already asleep, so she's like, let me be as quiet as I can. Gets in the bed, goes to sleep. Wakes up in the morning to find her roommate brutally murdered, blood everywhere, and turns around and written on the mirror was, aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light? So it was like one of these things where he had just killed the roommate. He was probably still in the room, but waited for her to go to sleep to escape, and just left her this little warning, like, aren't you glad that because you're going to turn on the lights, I would have killed you too. And it's like one of those freaky stories. I remember hearing it like freshman year, thinking, oh my God. So that was my number 5.
Yeah, we hear those stories too. Because when you're a freshman, I went to Albright College in Reading, Pennsylvania, and when you're a freshman there, we have a 5-day. We get to the school 5 days before the school year starts, and we have like a introduction to the college world type of thing. So we have groups. Your class is divided into groups of like 10, and we have these teachers, the students called pops, who are students who help you, get you to work together as a team and get you ensconced in the world of college and help you out with, how to budget your time and what you need to do, work your way around, stuff like that. And, you have all these fun little things, and that's one of the things they talk about is, taking care of yourself and watching out for things like that. Even though I think they prefaced it, this is a urban legend, but, there's could be some truth to matter that, you got to be a little careful and tell horror stories about their roommates and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a creepy one. That's a really creepy one. And there's variations of that one, like she hears the dripping of the blood, but is afraid to turn on the light. She's thinking about it, but she's like, nah, I don't want to, or whatever. But yeah, that's a creepy one.
And then they always say, like, if your roommate dies, you get a 4.0. Is that true?
I have no idea.
Because of the trauma of having to deal with it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Also, they actually made a couple movies about that. Also, there was actually one that was an independent film that was filmed on Towson University's campus, which is near where I grew up and where Dawn actually went to school. It has Matthew Lillard is in it, and I think Kerry Russell's in it also. And it's more of a dramatic one. And then Mark Paul Gosselaar did one also, which is more of a comedy. So there's 2 of those out there. But yeah, that's another that is an urban legend also. I mean, it's so the one movie with Matthew Lillard was like, let's kill our roommate and make it look like a suicide, and then we'll get a 4.0. And of course things don't go according to plan. And the same sort of premise as the more Paul Gosselaar movie as well. But yeah, it's all kinds of creepy stuff happens in college. Didn't happen to me, but got lucky though, But yeah, you had other stuff happen in college. It wasn't as much fun either. My number 5 is one that probably everybody's heard a million times also, and it kind of makes you not want to become a good Samaritan. And as soon as I say it, I know you're going to know exactly what it is. If you see a car while you're driving, you see a car with no headlights on, what you usually tend to do is, being a good person, you flip on you shine you click your brights and your regular lights on to say, hey, you don't have your lights on, and it's dangerous because you don't know if there's other cars coming, if there's animals on the road, people crossing the road, whatever. So you click your lights, and the urban legend is, what happens then is, as you're driving away, that car comes around and starts following you, and eventually like cuts you off or forces you off the road, and the people driving it kill you. Now, there are also variations on that one. One is that it's a serial killer, and that's how he finds his victims, that he goes and he slices and dices and kills them. The one that's picked up a lot of steam recently, considering the 80s and 90s, the rise of gangs in the inner city and stuff like that. It was a gang initiation where in order to get into like the Bloods or the Crips or something like that, you drive your car without the headlights, and then whoever flashes their lights at you, that's the person you have to kill in order to get into our group. Because if you're going to be in our gang, you're going to have to kill people, and you need to prove to us you can kill somebody. Mm-hmm. So those are those variations on that, and they've also they've connected it also to maybe the person in the back seat of the car also, which is like almost like a totally different variation on it. But there have been connections with that as well, like they're warning you that there's somebody in the back seat of your car. I don't know, but and that's actually interesting. They use that one in that movie Urban Legends also for a murder thing too. So and it was that story about the gang initiation was almost very believable, that there was actually in a few cities across the United States back in the 90s or whatever, they actually released statements. The police said, hey, if you see somebody who doesn't have headlights, don't flash your brights on them or they might kill you. But in the end, I think it turned out that it's not a real story. Though I still try to blink my lights at them because it's dangerous. I mean, obviously, sometimes you can forget to put on your headlights, or sometimes you're so used to them coming on automatically that either you forget that you had to flip them off or something like that or whatever, and it's dangerous. It really is. It's not just to save the person driving the car with no headlights. It's for us too, because you don't see them coming until they're right on top of you, and that's scary, and you don't want that to happen to anybody else down the way. All right, that's mine. Number 5.
That actually was my number 1. And the reason being, I can explain why when I get to number 1. Yeah, but okay. So, and the one you were saying about the person in the back seat, I've heard versions of that where there's a tractor trailer like trailing you, and they keep flashing their beams, and then the woman in the car is getting scared, so she ends up pulling up into a gas station. And then when the cops come out, and then the guy comes out, and she's like, he was following me and harassing me and flashing the lights, and he's like, no, there was somebody in your backseat of your car. That's the version I've heard of it. All right, so my number 4 is called The Hatchet in the Handbag, and there are a ton of variations of this one. So in the version that I read, and I actually read 2 or 3 different versions, a woman pulls into a gas station, and as the gas is being pumped, she tells them that she's in a hurry to pick up her daughter who just finished up an art class, when a well-dressed man with a briefcase walks up. And he's like, look, my rental car died. Is there any way that you can give me a ride? It sounds like you're heading in the same direction that I am. And so she's like, yeah, I'll do that. That's fine. So, he's like, okay. He's like, I'll be right back. Let me just run to the bathroom real quick, and throws his briefcase in the car and leaves to go to the bathroom. And then she's just frazzled because she has to go pick up her daughter from school, that she gets in the car once the attendant's done, pays for her gas, gets in the car, gets her daughter, goes home. Gets home, realizes, oh my gosh, I forgot about that guy at the gas station, and his briefcase is still in my car. So they take the briefcase out, they go into their family room, they open up the briefcase, like maybe they have like an ID or some way that we can call them to say, come get your briefcase. But when they open up the briefcase, all that's in there is duct tape, rope, and a small little hatchet. So basically, the con was like, let me pick up somebody at a gas station, tell them I need a ride, and then end up murdering them.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's my number 4.
That is kind of a creepy one. Yeah, we did. Wow, that is very creepy.
And the other version of that is the woman is in the mall parking lot, and the guy's like, oh, my car's parked on the other side of the mall. I came out the wrong entrance. Can you drive me to the other side of the mall because I'm in a rush? The same idea. Yeah.
All right. My number 4 was the one we already talked about, Pop Rocks and Coke. So, so we did that one. So I'll jump to your number 3 now.
Okay, my number 3 is called The Dead Body. And again, we have the vacationing honeymooners, which I think you know what this one is. So in my version of the story, the honeymooners go to Vegas, and they get this nice hotel room and blah, blah, blah. And so they're in it the first night, everything's fine. And the next day, they're like, they go to the concierge or housekeeping, and they're like, there's a strange smell in the room. So they're like, okay, well, while you're out for the day, we'll give it like an extra good shot, an extra good cleaning. So, you know, they're out all day doing whatever they're doing, all the activities. They come back in, and it still smells. So then they call the hotel manager, and they're like, you know, our room, there's this scent, and even though you guys had housekeeping come in, we appreciate it, the smell is so bad, you know, it's almost unbearable. So the guy's like, all right, I truly apologize. He's like, I'm going to comp you. You know, tomorrow you can spend the day at the casino and do whatever, and we'll come in there and do an extra, you know, strong scrubbing. So again, you know, they're out for the day. They come back in, and it still smells. And they're like, what is going on here? So the husband is getting really, really frustrated. They start looking all over the place, and he gets so mad that he starts like tearing up the place, lifts up the mattress, and finds a dead body in there. It turned out that somebody had either died or been murdered and stuffed under the mattress, and that slowly, as they decomposed, the room got smellier and smellier and smellier. And there are like tons of versions of the story. But that's
it is, and it always has to be Vegas, because Vegas is that area where, you know, the mob pretty much set it up, you know, back in the 60s, and so it could have been a mob hit that they buried in there, or at the same time, you know, prostitution's legal there for all intents and purposes, and, you know, somebody got a little too over amorous or whatever and ended up killing the prostitute and didn't want to go to jail, so buried them under the bed, so like that. And they actually, it's interesting, they Robert Rodriguez and actually made a series of short films. It was a movie called 4 Rooms, and there's 4 different films that take place in the same hotel room, I think, or different hotel rooms in the same hotel. And he got 4 different directors to direct it. And one of the stories is a variation on the dead body in the bed. So yeah, that's another really creepy one. And just, you know, it's disgusting when you smell decomposing flesh. Not only just a person, but of an animal also. It is very disgusting. So, yeah, it's.
Yeah, when I was in Sicily with my uncle, this was in the early 90s, we would go, because we're so non-morbid, we would go to the cemetery to pay our respects to older relatives, you know, and also it's almost like a little bit of history. You're learning about your family and relatives who are here for you. And it was summertime. And there was this sort of faint, weird smell, because I had never smelled that smell before. And I kept saying to my uncle, what is that? And he's like, oh, I don't know. And just sort of like blowing off my questions. And so then we get in the car, and we're driving away, and I was like, you know, that was really great. I got to see the names of, you know, all these relatives who are resting in peace. And I'm like, but what was that smell? And he looks at me, and he's like, you idiot. He's like, you don't know what that smell was? And I'm like, no. He goes, that's the dead bodies, because in Sicily, they don't, I guess maybe now they do, but at that time they didn't like take the fluid out and bury them the same way. And also, you're not buried there; you're put in the mausoleums, so it just rows and rows of walls. So yeah, that's what it was. I was smelling, and I was like, ooh, for the rest of the day. And I never forgot that smell. So then, like since then, I may have smelled, like you said, a passing deer, or like a dead squirrel or whatever. So now I know what that smell is.
I mean, that's another reason why all the graveyards in New Orleans are above ground. You never get buried in New Orleans because they're below sea level. So if you did that, you know, if it flooded or whatever, you'd have all these dead bodies and coffins going down the middle of.
Did that happen to Katrina, or was that an urban legend?
I think that did happen because of the intensity of it. Even though they were above ground, but the intensity of knocking out of a grave. There were ones like that too. But I think that's why they decided to do it, because they used to bury them, but then they had those. You know, it happened like every year. You'd have these, you know, floating coffins and corpses, you know, flying around. Yeah. Yeah. And I know this isn't really a urban legend, but I wanted to piggyback on what you were talking about when you smell the decomposing flesh in Sicily. This is more of an animal thing. When I was little, the house that my mom still lives at and I grew up with, we have a porch. And underneath it, we have like a little storage area where we store. It's made of dirt, and there's like we store bricks and, you know, wood and stuff like that. And there's just not for storing, you know, clothes or books or stuff like that. It's just like an outdoor storage area. And the door we had, it was a closed door, so you couldn't get in. And there was just a little cutaway where like maybe animals can get in. And we never really concerned ourselves because it was way in and out, so they'd be able to get in and out, and they would just hang around for a little while, and then they would leave. I mean,
right? They weren't setting up shop or anything. Yeah.
Well, a family of possums set up shop underneath there, and they had babies. And one day, the disgusting stench of decomposition was floating up into our porch area. And we at the time, we didn't know. We did the same thing that everybody else did. We didn't know where it was. We're looking around for it. And then I think it was my dad or something like that. He opened up the little doorway and discovered that the possum family had all died. I don't know how or whatever, including the little babies. So he had to go in there and dig them out, and I think we buried them. We ended up burying them anyway somewhere. Oh my! It was so disgusting. So yeah, it's sad, but at the same time, it's kind of disgusting. Yeah. And still this day, I don't know how that happened or what happened to them. So it's just the decomposing flesh is just horrible smell.
Yeah. It makes me almost happy that I live in this time, this age, because 100, 200 years ago, I think you had to deal with that kind of stuff because they would throw tons of flowers, but I don't care how many flowers you put down, you'd still get whiffs here and there of things. Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. Exactly.
Decomposition is much stronger than the smell of flowers.
Yes. Oh, they used to have their wakes in their family room too. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. No more.
All right, let's go eat something now. No, thank you. My number 3 is another one that I've actually been seeing a lot more of recently. Stories about that. And it's a variation once again on the girl home alone, because I guess females are considered to be the ones that seem to be the ones that get attacked more or something like that. But in this case, girl's home alone. It's snowing, and she's watching TV, and she hears a news bulletin comes on when she's watching TV, and it's the news people saying that the police have issued a warning for a psycho killer who's out on the loose, has been killing people out in the snow and stuff like that. Here's his description. They have a picture of him and stuff like that. And so the girl's watching it, and then she hears something, and she goes over, and she's got a glass doorway, and she sees this person in the window. I was like, oh God, he's outside my house. And she's getting ready to call the police and stuff like that. Say, yeah, the psycho killer's here. Remember, it's snowing. And she just happens to look over to see if he's still there. And he is, but he appears to be closer. And then she looks down. The snow hasn't been disturbed. The killer's reflection was in the window. He's inside the house and is getting ready to kill her. But because of the way it's a glass window and stuff like that, she saw the reflection thinking it was outside, because your eyes can play tricks on you. If you see a reflection, it could be something outside looking in on you, but actually the killer was inside the house and he was getting ready to kill her. So that's the number 3. It's one of those, I've been seeing it a lot. I've been seeing it a lot more recently, because I follow some different things on Twitter. They're weird mysteries and stuff like that, and they do these type of urban legend type of stories, kind of framing them as being true, I guess, kind of, as urban legend's supposed to be. That is one of those scary ones.
Gosh. Yeah, because I guess you just try to run for it. It's so funny because when I hear those type of scenarios, I immediately think what would I do? And I would try to plan out my strategy in my head, and after a while, I'm like, I would just be so dead because I wouldn't do the right thing. I don't know what I would do.
Because your first instinct is it's going to be to run away. You're not going to be like, you know what? I think I can take this guy. Yeah. He's got a butcher's knife. I think I'm gonna. I think I attack him. In the movies, they always seem to be able to attack him, but then. Right. The only advantage that I would see you would have is your house a bit better than they do, so you might be able to figure out a way. But at the same time, though, this guy could be really fast, he could be really strong, and all he needs to do is just give you one little whack with whatever, and you can be as strong as you can, but that's painful, and if he hits an organ that you're going to need eventually, you're dead regardless of what happens. Yeah. You're always thinking that, I'll be able, something like that ever happens to me, I'll be able to fend them off, and I'll be able to stop them and stuff like that, and it's like, I don't really think you would, Yeah. And I guess you can make the case that, I'm not, I'm not a big gun guy, and I don't have a gun at the house. I mean, but I guess stories like that, you could conceivably say, well, that's why you need a gun, you know, in case there's some killer who comes into your house and ready to kill you. You know where the gun is, you run to it, you keep it loaded, you turn it on, and you shoot them, and you get out of your house, you know. But I guess the pros and cons, you know, the cons and pros, the cons might outweigh the pros on that.
Yeah. There's so many ways of thinking when it comes to that. But in terms of like being scared, did you catch the Sandra Bullock? They released the 911 recording of when she had that stalker in her house last year.
No, so, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
No.
So what happened was, you know, I guess she lives in Hollywood or wherever she lives. I'm not sure. Does she live in Texas? You know, don't quote me on where she lives. I'm not sure. But she was in her mansion, and at 6:30 in the morning, she was woken up to sounds in her house. And she went and looked in the hallway, and she saw a man running up into her attic. I'm not sure if her attic's like an attic like yours or mine, or if it's like it's probably another room, another floor. So, you know, because it's in her house.
Exactly.
So she runs over, grabs her son, and then locks herself into her bedroom closet, which I guess is sort of also a panic room. And so the 911 calls were released because they're in court right now to decide what this guy is going to get. And she is terrified in the recording. She's like, he's in the attic. I can hear him in the ceiling. I'm locked in my closet. And it took the police like a while to get there. And you could just hear the fear in her voice. And they caught him and all. And now there's a trial to see, you know, what punishment he's going to get. But it's so freaky because it was real. It was happening. And, like, you can find those recordings online now.
That is creepy. And actually, I hadn't heard about that. And what's even worse, and I think the reason why she might have been even more scared is her kids there, you know. And that's the main thing that you're going to be most scared of, is that if, like, in this case, you know, the one I just told you, you know, the girl's by herself in the home. But you know what? There's you know, one of the most popular, you know, horror movie genres out there now is the home invasion. You know, and that's just as creepy. You know, what if, you know, a group of people break into your house with you and your family and they do horrible things to them? I mean, it is a fear I think every parent has, and that's why I don't like those types of films. I'm not a big horror buff anyway, but those types of films and torture films, stuff like that, I don't like them. And it's just I guess, and that's what urban legends do. I mean, that's sort of what they're there for. They give you that raw. And there's stories that give you those intense feelings that, oh God, you know, it makes you think, you know, what would happen if this happened to me, you know, and stuff like that, you know. And there was, you know, there's another picture that somebody posted on this, you know, one of these Twitter things I said, you know, these creepy mystery things that had, all it had was the caption, what would you do? And it was a picture of like one of these glass windows, and it was snowing, and there was footprints leading up to the door and then walking away because they decided they weren't going to go in and bother themselves. But you're by yourself in the middle of the woods or whatever. You don't know what this is. I mean, it could have been a neighbor, sure, but you know, it could also be some psycho killer or a robber, and you're home by yourself, and you wake up the next morning and you see, oh wait, there was somebody outside my door, outside of glass. All you had to do was go smash and get into the house, you know? Yeah,
or even just casing it first, knowing they're going to come back. Yeah,
exactly.
Scary. Yeah. All right. Well, my number 2 sort of continues on to this idea. It's called the clown statue. So, you know this one.
I like this one, yes.
There's a family who gets this babysitter, you know, and so she's watching the kids, and all of a sudden she turns, and in the corner of the room, there's a clown statue, and it's got this really, you know, clowns are creepy as it is, but it's got this creepy expression on its face, and it's scaring her, it's freaking her out. So finally, she calls the dad, wherever he is, and she's like, look, she's like, I know this is really silly for me to be disturbing your date, but this clown statue in the room is really freaking me out. You know, can I move it or do something with it? And he's like, oh my God, do me a favor, grab the kids and go run to a neighbor's house and call 911. He's like, I can't explain. We're going to leave now. We'll meet you, but just get out of the house and call 911. So she grabs the kids, they get out of the house, and call 911. So I guess, let me see, I have to read where it says here, if the cops go, and I don't know whatever happens if the cops find them, but it turns out that the kids, the last couple of nights, have been complaining to the parents, waking up having these nightmares and telling them there's a clown in the house, there's a clown in the house. So then when, you know, the sitter who's awake sees this clown in the house, the father tells them to get out. And it turns out in one version of the story, it's this, like, midget killer who would come in and, like, spy and look and check you out and all, but that the night I know, it's funny. But the night that, they were going out on the date, he didn't get a chance to get out of the house, so he just stood real still in the corner. Right, so, yeah, it's a weird one. Weird, scary, yeah. I'm sure there's variations where it's like a killer, where it's just this innocent guy, where it's like a peeping Tom who got caught, that sort of thing.
And the one thing that I've seen a lot, that's another one that's been a more recent one also. I hadn't really heard that one in the 80s. It was more of one more recently. Was the other line is that the father says, we don't have a clown statue, or something like that to the babysitter.
Just terrifying.
So I mean, and you're absolutely right. Clowns are very creepy. I mean, it's just it's about painted faces and. I mean, I guess they've done enough in pop culture to give you the frights of this clowns. I mean, the Joker basically looks like a clown from Batman, Then you've got Pennywise from It, so you've got him also, and then you've got, I guess John Wayne Gacy or one of those serial killers dressed up as a clown also, and did kids' birthday parties and killing people, getting victims that way too. So. Yeah, clowns are really kind of, and then of course, the most recent stuff. We talked about this. The one with the guy in like Hertfordshire in England. People have been witnessing a guy dressed as a clown at night, standing outside of their houses, staring at them with balloons and stuff like that, just watching them. Then there was one there was an American version, like in California. There's been cited out in California also, so like a copycat. They're not threatening anybody. There have been no murders, there's been no robberies, whatever. It's just guys wanting to scare you, hanging out in a clown costume with balloons and just staring at you and waving.
Yeah, that's not right. I guess you couldn't even call the police on them because they're probably not in restraining order, feet-wise, and they're not doing anything to you.
Yeah, they're just staring at you.
That makes it 100 times worse.
Yeah, on your property,
Right.
It'd be almost like, a guy standing out dressed as a clown, standing out in the road, looking into my house. Yeah. Nothing I can do because I don't own the road. It's not part of my property.
Right.
He's not on there. He's just looking at me.
Yeah.
Am I afraid? Yeah, I'm scared, but you know what? He's not doing anything. If something then, if he moves onto my property or he comes to the window or the door, that's a different story. Then you can call the cops. He's trespassing, but he's not.
Yeah, that's. Ugh.
And actually, I'm just going back to something. I just thought of this. Behind me in my basement.
You have a clown?
No, a clown. No, that's my glass. That's my glass. My glass doorway out to our backyard.
Yes, it's a big doorway. Somebody was standing there. Yeah.
Exactly. And plus, it's our backyard, and as I said, our yard, isn't like a backyard, like you have. Ours is like a little square, a little square of grass. Yeah. And there's a fence, and then there's like a area of like a swampy, foresty type of area. So that's even creepier too, because we do have lots of trees. Yeah, and it's really easy. I mean, the window, it's a 2 panes of glass. I mean, I've got a sliding one and then a regular one. And I've got a window right down here also, so it's kind of lucky that, I'm in a pretty good neighborhood, so we've never had that issue. But I mean,
you guys are in a great spot. Yeah.
There was a story. I think I told I met you last October when I told you that my car window got shot out by somebody. Yes. When the cops came and I was watching them, they were patrolling these back little areas. There's like a little dirt path that goes behind all the houses, and supposedly this person who shot out my window might have actually run past these houses using this back little pathway, and that's kind of creepy also because it's kind of dark. I mean, the trees that grow right by the fence line are big ones, and their leaves and stuff branches they sort of come over so that it's kind of a shadowy type of area. So it's kind of creepy. But
they never found the guy.
No, I've never heard anything. I haven't heard any updates or anything like that. It's been since October, so I don't know. I mean, we haven't had any issues since. So, I mean, just your typical stuff.
A strange one-time incident, yeah.
Yeah. So, so let me see. So your number 2 was the clown. My number 2 is this is another one that when you think of urban legends, everybody has probably heard this one before too. Guy goes to a bar, starts hitting on a woman, And he's drinking lots of alcohol, and she's buying him drinks, and he's buying her drinks, and they're just getting really wasted. And so he's drunk enough, and that she decides that they're going to go back to his hotel, his house, whatever. As much again, variations on the story. Could be going back to his house, going back to a hotel room because he's in on business or whatever. And he takes the girl back to, let's just say in this case, his hotel room. And you know what's going to happen, obviously. But instead, when they're getting ready to get down and dirty, he passes out. So obviously he drank too much, and that happens, whatever. He wakes up. He is in the bathtub full of cold water and ice, and his kidney is missing. So what the story is that he's trying to figure out what's going on, and that eventually we learn that the woman that he was hitting on in the bar actually drugged his drink and was an accomplice to somebody. So once he got him back to his room and he passed out, she opened the door for her accomplice who came in. They put him, they took out his kidney and put him in the ice water so he would survive long enough, and then they would sell his kidney on the black market for a lot of money. So that's an urban legend that's been out there for a while also. And it's another creepy one also because, when you're first dating, when you're in your 20s, your 30s, or whatever, and you're just going out dating and clubbing. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, the person you might pick up on might be a psychopath. The person you pick up on might be a thief. The person you pick up on might have a STD, for that matter.
Right, yeah.
You never know. It's kind of scary. So that was just an added thing. You don't know that this person could be an accomplice to a black market organ group. So,
oh my gosh.
Just the fact is, what would you do? I mean, you wake up, you're hungover, have a headache, and you have a hole where your kidney used to be, and you're in a bathtub full of cold water. So it's like, wow.
And it's scary because then you only have the one kidney that you have to, hope lasts the rest of your life because you kind of need both of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I've heard a variation of that story where it's like college kids going to Mexico like for spring break or just going on like a vacation, and same idea, they get drunk or they pick up guys and then they get their kidneys and take them for the black market. Yeah, there's been tons of reverse to that.
And once again, there are movies about that also, stories. Right. So they make good stories like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, we both hit our number ones, but let's just go a little bit more in depth on our number one. So your number one was
mine, the flashing your headlights and you'll die. So that one, it's funny because I lived in Philly. I went to Drexel for college, so that was like 91 through 95, and I remember hearing that one, and I actually believed it. Because in Philly, you go like West Philly, Northwest Philly, that's where you get into the bad areas. And there's gangs. I mean, definitely there are gangs and crime and whatnot. So if you're driving on 95, 95 is a busy highway. 95 because it goes all the way through to where you guys are. If you see a car with no headlights on, you have no business being on 95 with no headlights on, let alone, like you were saying, back roads with animals and whatnot. So I remember there was like a span of years where I just would not flash my lights to anybody because I believed that I was in Philly, I was in the big city. I don't know who's in these cars and with no headlights in the city and on these major highways, and so that was my number one just because I believed it for a while. I mean, because it is very possible. I mean, the premise seems real,
It does, absolutely, because
a way to pick out your victims, whether you murder them, rape them, whatever it is you're going to do to them. It's a very easy thing to do.
And it also it's you're being a good Samaritan. You're being good. You're being helpful because that's dangerous. And to get rewarded, to get killed for doing something right, or if you somehow escape, it's going to make you think twice about helping people again because you've lost their faith in them. My number one was Bloody Mary, which you talked about earlier also. And similar with you is, we're both smart people. And at the same time,
thank you.
I can never find myself even attempting to do that.
You never tried
go to midnight. I think I did it like at 3 a.m. and I did it really fast because like she wanted it was supposed to be midnight, so it won't happen if I do it like 3 a.m. or what I do is I would stare, like I think there was one day I stared in the bathroom mirror at like 3 a.m. and I was just, I guess I woke up because I had to go to the bathroom, whatever, and it was dark, and I was just, should I try it? I don't know, but it just, I know it's not true. But it's still one of those things that it freaks me out enough. It's like, what if it is true? I know it isn't, but what if it is? And then this creepy woman pops up and then might murder you, you know?
Right. You're always afraid to, like, die in such a stupid way, too. And then you feel like, oh, they did Bloody Mary and they died, you know? And then your poor kids have to live with that for the rest of their life.
And then they did they made that movie Candyman, sort of similar premise like that as well. Well, yeah, we pretty much covered everything for the most part.
Yeah, I guess
the
they're
one
kind
thing
of
is
just quick, fun little anecdotes. Yeah.
Yeah, well, the one thing over here, when we just got a little bit more time, some of the ones that we might have missed. I mean, I covered some of them, but the big one that both of us missed was there's a couple of them actually, and we can hit some of those others. There's the one about the call coming from within the house. The whole babysitter story. The babysitter's got 2 kids. And she gets a phone call. The kids are in bed, and she's downstairs watching TV, and she gets a phone call on the phone, and it's somebody threatening her or cackling, like, you better check on the kids, like that. And at first she thinks it's just a joke, but then they keep calling back and back, and she starts panicking a little bit, and then she calls the police. And they say, okay, we'll try to we'll trace it to see where it's coming from. And it's like, oh, you got to get out of the house. It's coming from inside the house. And so she gets out, and then some of the variations are the killer's already coming down the stairs. The kids are all in most parts of the story. The kids are already dead. They've been killed by the psycho killer, and he's coming down to kill her. So that's one that is a fairly popular one, and again is one I've been, everyone makes jokes about all the time. The killer's inside the house.
It kind of reminded me of Scream, which is why I didn't put it on the list, because I was like, well, it sort of was done as, a movie, and a very good movie at that, but yeah.
Exactly, and then there's all the ones about the Lover's Lane ones, the scraping of your Lover's Lane, and they hear somebody, the girl hears someone, and the guy says he'll go and check on it for her, gets out of the car, and then doesn't come back. And then all she starts hearing is this scraping noise or whatever, and she doesn't know where her boyfriend is, and she panics, and she ends up, like leaving, I think, and I'm not exactly sure what happens. Like she goes out and sees him hanging from the trees, dead, and the scraping was his finger scraping the top of the car. Right. And then you've got the hook guy, which is another one where, she's hearing some strange noises and she drives away. Maybe it's connected to the guy hanging from the tree. She drives away, and then when she gets home, she opens the door and closes the door. She sees a hook, and, someone had a hook hand, and it's on the door handle, like it was getting ready to open the door when she drove away, so it pulled his hand off. And, she had heard rumors that there was a killer up there on Lover's Lane and stuff like that. So there are those, and then of course the
licking fingers, the dog licking the fingers, where the woman is she's laying in bed and she hears like a drip 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 noise, so she goes into the bathroom and checks the faucet, like tightens it, goes back, then continues to hear that drip 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 noise, but at the same time, like as she's laying in bed, her one arm is hanging off the bed and she's getting licked, and she's like, okay, just my dog, and he's comforting me. And then I guess in the morning when she wakes up, she goes in the room. It turns out that the dog's been murdered. The dripping was the blood, draining out of the dog. And there's a note saying humans can lick too.
that one almost made my list. So that's another one that almost made my list. So there's just so many of them out there. And one that's not quite so creepy is the $250 cookie recipe from Neiman Marcus.
Yeah.
Back in the old days when, these department stores used to have like restaurants and stuff. Well, I guess some of them still might have restaurants in them. And this one woman ate lunch at Neiman Marcus and had got cookies for dessert, and she loved it. So she asked, the chef or whatever, can you give me the recipe? I'd like to make it. And he's like, yeah, sure, here it is. And then she gets her credit card statement the next month and is checking it out. She notices a $250 attached, that was charged to her credit card from Neiman Marcus. She's like, well, no, here's all my Neiman Marcus stuff that I remember buying. What's this $250? And she goes in to investigate it, and they say, oh, yeah, that's for the cookie recipe. You wanted the cookie recipe. We gave it to you, but we weren't giving it to you for free. We gave it to you for $250. That's
yeah, and then she goes and she posts it, and it became like a big chain mail. It became a chain email. And she's like, well, because they charge you so much, here is the recipe. So now everybody can make their cookies at home, and they won't make any more money on their cookies. And it was like everyone was passing around on email, and it was just like chocolate chip cookie recipe. That's all it was.
And then, of course, you've got the senile, the older people who the dog gets wet, and to dry it off, they put the dog in the microwave.
Oh, I never heard that one. Ouch.
Yeah, there's that one. Then there's a variation of that also where the baby gets put in the microwave also because he's wet or something like that. And, creepy stuff. And, hey, you said Lucas made an appearance.
Oh, who's this?
Say hi to Miss Cherry.
Hi.
It's Miss Cherry. Remember Miss Cherry? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a fun spring break?
Did you have a fun spring break?
Yeah.
I saw all your pictures of all the adventures you guys went on. Awesome.
Yeah, they went to Washington and the zoo and all kinds of stuff.
Very cool.
No, get out of here. Daddy's almost done anyway. But no, it's just funny. The last couple of shows, he's been coming down and just been hiding behind me. And then Noel comes down every once in a while also. So I got a little sneaky. I did a couple episodes from the very back of my basement. I got my comic book stuff, my bobbleheads, and I put my table there so they can't get behind me. So. I know I'm a cool, horrible daddy.
No.
Anything else off the top of our head we can think of?
I don't know. I guess not. I felt like there was always the same, like 15 to 20, and just tons of variations of them.
Which is absolutely true. I mean, and then that's one of the downsides of having the urban legends, because they are passed around so much that much like the legends of old, things get changed and updated for contemporary times, stuff like that. And then there's still urban legends getting passed out around today, but a lot more of them are more along the lines of like the supernatural and stuff like that, which it's could be considered an urban legend, but at the same time it's more of a supernatural scary story that we know can't really be true, but some of these stories that we talked about could possibly happen, Right. I mean, it's not, we know that there's not going to be, some, creepy spirits, hurting people or whatever, because it's just not logical, but they could still have, because we know that there are psychopaths out there who will break into people's houses and slaughter them and kill them and stuff like that, people faking their deaths and people with the flashing of the lights and stuff like that. It happens, and it's a horrible time we live in, but
Well, that also reminds me of the one big one that I purposely left off the list was the Slender Man, which I think the story of the two girls who believed in him so much. I don't know if the legend is that he wants you to kill somebody to appease him, so those two girls invited the third girl to come over for a sleepover. And then they lured her into the woods and stabbed her like 19 times. But somehow she was able to make her way out of the woods. I don't know how that poor girl did that. She got out of the woods. She survived. And then there was the whole court trial. I think the trial might even still be going on. But, I mean, I purposely didn't even add that one to the list because I have no interest in the story after what had happened. Yeah.
Exactly. It is. It's a horrible story. And we'll just cut it. We'll dip it in the bud there. But I'm just saying that the more recent ones are more along these lines of the supernatural ones, which aren't as, I mean, they're scary, but at the same time, we know that they really aren't true. Yeah. I mean, that story is true, but I mean, the creature itself is not a true being.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. It was just some mentally unstable people, and that's the problem is we have those out there. We've got the serial killers out there who do these type of things, and it's just, as I say, it's a scary world, but you gotta be lucky, but I think we'll nip that in the bud now, and talk about something more fun. Next month is our show will be on a Saturday, be May 9th, because May 10th is Mother's Day, and Jerry's a mother, and my wife is a mother, so I'm going to go see my mother, and so don't want to do my goofy little show on Mother's Day when mother should be the more focused. So Jerry and I are going to be doing our list show on Saturday the 9th, regular time, 12:30 p.m. And because of it's Mother's Day weekend, we're going to do the top 10 best mothers of pop culture. So, you know, it could be some funny, some scary, whatever mothers make a big impression on you in pop culture. So it'll be a bit of a lighter, more fun list.
Yeah, this one is way dark. Yeah.
A little darker, deeper there, but yeah, we had some fun ones though. I mean, the Pop Rocks one is funny because we know it's not true, and Neil Armstrong one, you know, stuff like that. So
I love that one.
it's a great one. So we'll do that. So that's our show next month. So join us back then for that. I'll be doing my show next Sunday, May 19th. Not quite sure which one's going to be. My third week show is usually my out of my head, where I just go on a rant for a whole 2. Actually, it's I think I've told you before. It's we've done some long ones, you and I.
Yeah.
My solo ones have knocked them out of the water a couple times.
Really?
The longest one I ever did. The longest one I ever did was a solo one I did was 2 hours and 45 minutes long. I was like, I talked.
It was just you?
Yeah, it was just me. I talked by myself for almost 3 hours.
You have a lot to say.
I do. I have a lot to say, and I'm going to have a lot to say. Unfortunately, it's going to be, you know, kind of a bit again on the darker side. If I do it this weekend, because the following week, 25th, 26th, is my international show, and Bronwyn, my co-host, it's her birthday weekend.
Oh.
And I don't know if she's got plans to do that, so we might flip-flop those shows. She might do our show next week, and I'll do my solo show at the end of April, or she'll work it out so that she'll do her show on, we'll do our show together at the regular time. I'll do my show, solo show next week. So we'll work that out during this week, and you guys will find out. So you're either going to get me by myself, or get me, Bronwyn, and I think Amy Figaro is going to come on also. Might get someone else in here as well to just, once again, talk about whatever we feel like. So it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, my theme, if I do it by myself, you know, the month of April is kind of a rough month for bad events. You had the Columbine attack. You had the Virginia Tech attack. And some other stuff as well happened in April. So I'm going to take a look at some of these real crime stories and get into feelings and thoughts about it, and also try not to make it a good thing, and try not to, you know, give the people their due for doing what they did to get there, you know. But it's just something I kind of just want to talk about and talk about. But that's just one part of it. There's going to be some other lighter stuff also. I'll be talking a little bit about Twin Peaks and the craziness that's going on with that, and David Lynch leaving the show in Showtime, and I want to also get talking more about Free Comic Book Day, which is coming up May 2nd, and it'll come on before my comic book show. So my next comic book show is after Free Comic Book Day, so I'm going to talk about that. Plus Avengers is coming up, so I'll be talking a little bit about that and what's going on in the comics as well. So I've got all kinds of fun stuff, and that is that. So we're ending early today, and it's a beautiful day, so we can go out and enjoy ourselves. So Jerry, have a great time. Thanks for hanging out with me, and thank you all for watching. And we will see you. I will see you next week, and Jerry and I will see you on Saturday. I think May 9th was what we choose, about 12:30. All right. Top 10 moms. Bye.
Okay, bye.